Hi guys, my name is Susan Cromwell, and for those of you who don't know me, I am a wife, I'm a mother, I am a woman in recovery, yes, for about 11 years, almost 12 years now, and I'm also a co-host. I'm one of two hosts on a program called Let's Pray, and I'm pleased to be a part of it, and the Hope Channel family, which is who we do the program through. And oftentimes I have an opportunity to create a sense of community for others. And I love doing it because really, guys, that's just my heart. That's what I want to do. So today I'd like to extend that into the field of fertility. I want to take a few moments to tell you a little bit about my husband and I's journey through fertility or infertility, however you want to look at it. This is not easy for me. Normally I have a whole crew of super talented people helping me out, so it's just you and me and my basement and my phone, and I'm hoping that this comes through well enough. I've tried to write some things down, but we're just going to bumble around in the dark through this together, okay? My desire is to provide, like I said, a sense of community, but I also want people to be encouraged because this is a process that is very hard, and each of us takes a different path because all of our bodies are different, all of our beliefs are different, all of our ability to handle things are different, and sometimes our bodies just tell us no when we're trying to say yes. So there's 1,000 different paths that somebody could take through the journey of fertility or infertility. And by no means during this chat am I trying to dictate what anybody else should do. You are not going to get any condemnation from here if anything comes out, because I'm kind of just because it's my story, and I don't want to say something that's going to possibly make somebody feel isolated or pushed out. But I'm just going to come from that frame of reference where it's just my story. So just know that I'm speaking from a heart of love and acceptance. And if anything comes off any differently, just please disregard. I was talking to a girlfriend this last week, and her and I are both commenting that the more knowledge we have over a certain topic, it increases our ability to relax. So I'm hoping that today I can convey some good information to you. Tell you a little bit about my journey. We'll tell you most of my journey, mine and my husband's, and at the same time provide you with an ability to maybe just have some information. So I'm going to do my chat, and then I'm going to have some practical things that I'd like to go over with you as well. So I'm going to talk about the diagnostics. I'm going to show you what I do for my injections, and I'm going to talk about some of my favorite things, the hardest things, stuff maybe I do differently, and then I have some exciting stuff to tell you at the end of this. So stay tuned. I'd like to be able to share this exciting news with you. So I guess it all started, my husband and I got married, and I turned 38, and at that time we realized that it was really time for us to find some other options, to maybe take a look at some other things as far as having a family with a child, that is. And so, my mind is racing, guys. There's so much. This is years of a process. So we talked to our insurance, we talked to my OB, and she referred us to a place. And so we started going there, and they did some diagnostic tests, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Found out that I and my husband's bodies seemed to be functioning properly. So they titled it Unexplained Infertility. Sometimes, and for some of my friends actually, there is a specific reason, and then they're able to move forward in that. But for us, it was a bit more of a mystery. So we moved forward, and because of our style of insurance, we couldn't move straight into IVF, which was our preferred direction, because it was, to us, it seemed like it would be the most effective. So they put me on this stuff called Clomid, which boosts my egg quality and just helps with the whole round itself. And they did something called an IUI. We had to do 3 IUIs before we were able to move on to IVF, and it's if you've never had anything to do with this stuff, it can be pretty difficult. So they give you the Clomid, and of course, you're dealing with hormones at that point. You're also dealing with all of the thoughts and feelings, which everyone's going to process a little differently about your body. I know that men also have, because it's not just us girls that are going through this, I know that the guys have some concern and curiosity pertaining to, are they functioning properly? So even though they told us it was unexplained and that everything seemed to be okay, I couldn't help but feel responsible. As I said, I'm in recovery, and so of course that old shame kept just washing over me, and I walked with it for a little while before I learned how to handle that. But just feeling like I'd done so much damage to my body that of course it had to be my fault. My husband's lived in a completely clean life and is a very healthy man, and so I immediately started to be angry with myself and the things that I had done. And then of course I'm sensitive about my age as well, because I'm thinking, well, if I'd been sober a little bit earlier on, then maybe we wouldn't be going through this. It just, all of that. So garbage aside, we move forward. The IUI is basically when they inseminate, essentially. So they'll do what they call a trigger shot to release an egg from my ovaries, and then they will time everything well, inseminate me. And of course, my husband and I, we were using just our stuff, because there are some cycles that you can use other people's eggs or semen or things like that. So you get that done, and then you wait a couple of weeks, which is like torture, because it's called the 2-week wait, and the mind plays all the tricks on you. It's really, really hard, honestly. And now it depends on who you are. But for me, I'm coming from a place where I don't know what I'm capable of. I'd been sober for a while, but I hadn't come across something this life altering. And so my coping skills weren't in place yet. I wasn't seeing anybody or talking to anybody about it. My husband isn't the most expressive person. So I was wrestling with all this stuff inside this 2-week wait. And then we get the information back. We did a blood test, and it didn't take. It failed, for lack of a better phrase. And so, you're okay for a couple of hours because you tell yourself you're going to be fine. And then all the fear would wash over me, and the letdown. And it was really, really hard. So we did it again, and it didn't work. And we did it again, and it didn't work. So by that time, we were able to move on to IVF, which is in vitro fertilization, which means everybody meets up outside the pool. So that's where they take the sperm and the eggs after they've done an egg retrieval. They stimulate the ovaries. They time everything. They pull the eggs out. They get everybody to meet up in the petri dish. They see who fertilizes. And depending on whether you're going to cryopreserve your embryos, if you have any left over, which is another thing not everybody does. Sometimes people have one viable embryo, and then 5 days later they transfer. At least that's the protocol for the clinic we were in. Sometimes they'll do a 3-day transfer, which means they've retrieved the eggs, everybody's together. 3 days later, they'll do a 3-day blastocyst, and or 3-day embryo. I'm not sure the term is correct there, but we did a 5-day blastocyst. And so we actually were super blessed, because we ended up with 9 embryos that we could freeze. And that's just unheard of at my age. So I can see Jesus all through this. I can tell that he's got his hands all over it, although it's extremely hard and very disappointing and a bit grueling, especially that fresh cycle. To me, if I had to do another fresh cycle, I wouldn't do this again. I wouldn't have kept going at all. But luckily we had embryos that we could freeze. So we transferred 2 embryos from that first, they call it a fresh cycle, IVF. They did the egg retrieval. 5 days later, the embryologist would call periodically and let me know who was still there, how many we still had. Luckily, by grace, mine did super well, you guys. It was awesome. Sorry, I'm kind of just blazing through the information portion of this. And so we moved into a frozen cycle. But you guys, I was so devastated by the end of the fresh cycle. After failing 4 different cycles, I had to take a break. You guys, my husband sent me home to Washington. It was so affirming to me, because it's like he saw me, he knew. I just felt broken. I felt like I just felt like not even a woman. I just, it was really hard. I mean, you're really pushing through when you're doing this stuff, and not everybody has such a hard time with it, but I did, devastatingly so. And that's okay. And that's one of the things I'd like you to know, is that however you're handling it, it might not be like the world's best way to handle it, but you're still handling it. You're still brave enough to keep going. You're still pushing through, and it's okay to take a break. If you're able to take a break and come back in, then do it if you feel like you need to. Don't feel like you have to just keep, because we've got to be able to support life, so we have to take care of ourselves, right? So I went away, I went to Washington State, and then I went to Texas, and then I came back, and then our next embryo transfer, which was a frozen cycle, which is so much easier. Oh my goodness, it's so much easier, you guys. It's not easy, but it's easier than a fresh cycle. The fresh cycle has so many more blood draws, injections. The stimulating the ovaries is grueling, because you're getting a phone call every single day from your nurse. You're changing your medication levels every day, whether you're taking them, whether you're not taking them, what your numbers are going to be. Like, it's just constant. And then you're trying to show up for work every day acting like you're totally normal and like, oh, nothing's going on. Just my back teeth are floating in hormones. But no, we're good. I mean, how? I don't understand. They're like, relax. But you're pumping me full of hormones and you're trying to tell me to relax, people. It just doesn't work. So anyway, we get to the next cycle that my husband and I do. We ended up transferring 2 embryos on September 14th of 2015. And let's see, it's 2018 right now, November. So we did 2 embryos, and I could tell right away something was different. And we were pregnant. And it was a wonderful. I was so nervous that I peed on 4 sticks 4 days in a row just to make sure. Because when you're doing this, I know I'm not alone in this, but we're like crazy people. After so much struggle and defeat and, all these things that we tell ourselves and the hardship that we're going through, you get that positive pregnancy test and you're tempted to not believe it because. And so, 4 days later, I finally believe it. And then I have the beta test done, which is the blood draw, where they tell you what your HCG levels are, which is the hormone that's released that tells you you're pregnant. That's an indication of pregnancy, that is. And it's like skyrocketed. It's super high. And now not always, but that can be indicative of twins. And now remember, we transferred 2. So who knows by that time. But just before I was 8 weeks pregnant, I was at the Hope Channel. And it was about 15 minutes before we went live. And I went to the ladies' room, and plug your ears, guys. I was bleeding heavily, and I was clotting. And it was horrifying. It was horrifying. So we were about 15 minutes before I went on air, and I didn't know what to do. And I called my husband, and I said, I need you to come get me. And he said it was going to take him a minute to get there. And it's about 25 minutes from our home. And so I thought, well, what do I do? So I went and I told Priscilla, who was producing the program that evening. And she said, Susan, we'll do whatever you want. We can do a rerun. You don't have to go on. This is a live program. And I just felt this peace and this calm rush over me. And I felt the Lord say, what I believe is the Lord speaking to my heart. I don't know what your beliefs are, and I don't mean to offend, but I got to tell it like it is. I felt the Lord speak to my heart and say, Susan, you take care of my stuff, and honey, I'm going to take care of yours. And it was so profoundly, I knew for sure that that's what was being said to me. And I just said, okay, let's just do it. Let's go on. And I think she was pretty shocked, but I knew it was going to take time for Chris, my husband, to get there. And so we just moved forward. So at that point, my husband comes and gets me after the program. I made it through. Whew, praise the Lord. There were some tears on the commercial breaks, but I think my co-host thought I was falling apart, and they of course didn't know why. So we get to the hospital and we have the ultrasound done, and it's hours later, and there's one baby in there, and the heartbeat is good, and the heartbeat is strong, you guys. And do you see? This is my little guy right there. Meow. His name ends up being Gideon. That's my Gideon. So, what it ended up happening, it was what they call a subchorionic bleed. I think that both embryos took and that I lost one. And I think that because it had attached and begun to grow, that's why there was so much bleeding. But praise God, he preserved the life of my son, because subchorionic bleeds aren't always a big deal, but they can end in miscarriage. And so he kept my little guy hanging in there tough. So the rest of the pregnancy was pretty uneventful. I had some contracting, but we decided after a while that was just going to be my baseline. But everything went well, and now I have a 2.5-year-old boy, and we couldn't be happier. He is the living embodiment of joy and sunshine. He does have this calm to him like his father, but he's a celebrator like his mama, y'all. I mean, just, whoa, I love this kid so much, you guys. There were some struggles with when he was born. There was a birth injury, but we're just seeing miracle after blessing for that. And I don't mean to sit here and try to say that every story turns out like, oh, with a nice little bow and a package and everything's perfect, but everything will be okay. I don't know what your journey is. I don't know where you are. I don't know if you've decided to participate in medical intervention for fertility or go a natural route, or you don't need it at all and you're just interested to hear what my story is. Thank you for listening. It's wonderful to be able to share. But my desire isn't to try to tell you that I have answers or solutions, or that the way we did stuff was perfect or better than anybody else's. It was obviously there was struggle. There was obviously hardship, and we had no idea if we were going to end up with a baby, but we did. And so I don't want you to lose hope. If you feel like it's the desire of your heart and that you've been told to pursue this, then pursue it. Pursue it until you're absolutely done. And you'll know when that is. Just don't do it alone. If I'm the only person you talk to, awesome. You can find me. I've got public profiles at Season Cromwell, Facebook and Instagram, and on YouTube here. You can comment below. If you want to do it privately, you can. There's opportunity for that on both of the other social media sites. Like, guys, you don't have to do this alone. That's my heart's desire for you, just to know that you're not walking through this maze of confusion and like information like you're drinking from a fire hose. I mean, you guys, it can be so overwhelming. Don't do this alone. You don't have to. And I'm thankful if you have somebody who's walking through this with you, but let's build a community. Let's do this thing together. With that being said, there's a couple things I wanted to go over with you. First of all, I wanted to talk about some of the testing. So what they'll do, hang on. Water is good, y'all. So some of the testing that they'll do, there was, of course, pelvic ultrasounds, blood work. And then for this particular protocol in clinic, they do when you move into IVF, they'll do a saline sonogram, which is something that gives them a decent image and kind of a lay of the land. They'll also call it a mock embryo transfer. So they'll take a look and see, because we're all different. We're all shaped a little bit differently. And then they'll do a histosalpingogram where they put contrast dye to make sure that there's no blockages. So it gives them a really good image, and the liquid flows through and spills out. And usually that'll tell them if there's anything they need to do, if there's any polyps or fibroids or just anything funky that's going on, and that they might be able to repair or fix that might be hindering implantation. For me, there was a polyp both times, and so that's just what we had to take a look at and deal with. So I had a polypectomy, and it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's certainly not fun. And and I realize that not everybody has insurance to do all this stuff too. So that can be another burden in this journey too. Anyway, that's some of the diagnostics that we went through. In the injections, of course, there's so much paperwork you've got to sign, informed consent, so they educate you on risks and procedures, and then you sign your life away, indicating that yes, you have watched the stuff they've told you to watch and that you are educated as such. They also do injection classes through our coordinating nurse or education nurse, and she was awesome. We love her. She has drawn little teeny circles on my backside, and so my husband would be able to, X marks the spot. You got to hit the target, right? So speaking of injections, I'm going to show you a couple things. These little guys here. So this one is the progesterone. Can you see that? And then this one is estrogen. It's the little guy here. During these cycles, I take the people that go through this particular protocol take estrogen every third night. So you'll skip 2 nights and then go on a third. And then the progesterone and oil is every night. Progesterone and oil is kind of a doozy. This is kind of what I wanted to tell you about. For those of you who want more information or need it, I think this is kind of the practical stuff. So, for example, with the progesterone, I would take 1 milliliter, 1 cc, and pull it with one needle, with a bigger needle. See, there's individual needles. You pull it with a bigger needle, and then you would inject it with a smaller needle. And if you're saying that's not very small, yeah, you're right, it's not. But it's got to be bigger than the needles. Say, for example, when I was doing the stimulation of my ovaries, because those just go subcutaneous. It's just right in the fat layer on your tummy, and the teeny tiny diabetic needles. So it's like, no problem. Now, needles are needles, and injections aren't fun no matter who you are. But it's not as hard. And so with the intramuscular injections, they've got to be a little bit more intense. So some people, this doesn't bother them at all. All right. It's been something that I've had to grow into. As I said before, I didn't always believe that I was very capable of handling things and didn't know some of my strengths, but I got pretty darn good at it. So something funny I was going to tell you is that when I was pregnant with Gideon, before I was pregnant with Gideon, actually, I was just prepping for that embryo transfer, and I was flying down to Florida. I had to go to a family funeral, and I got stuck in the Charlotte airport overnight. So I had to do my progesterone in oil, which is in my bum, like this, like reversed, no ice, no nothing, in the airport bathroom, you guys. But I did it. Yes. So that was pretty awesome. And it was, it left me feeling a little bit more capable and like, oh my goodness, I just did that. I sat down next to a complete stranger and said, I'm never going to see you again. So I just wanted to tell you because I had to tell somebody. I just did something that was amazing. And I did it myself. So this lady right here. Anywho, so those are the injections there. There's a couple things. I have some stuff written down. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss it. So yes, it is something that I've really been wanting to talk about for a long time, and I wanted this talk to be perfect. But I think that desire in itself was just stopping me because life's not perfect, right? Isn't that what we're talking about? Is the imperfectness, the imperfection in life? Because if it was a perfect world, we'd all just be getting pregnant, right? And I also have discovered sitting in the fertility clinic at 7 o'clock in the morning, waiting for my chance to get monitoring done, which is they do the blood work and the ultrasounds. And I look around the room. There is every size. There is every shape. There is every color, every belief system. There is It's the great equalizer. Besides Jesus, it's the great equalizer. Infertility doesn't care who you are, what color you are, what you believe. It doesn't care. And so I looked around that room and and of course everyone's very private and everyone's very, doesn't want to be there. So I've had to keep myself from doing or saying anything, but I've always wanted to gather them all together and just for all of us to kind of give each other a hug and say, yeah, this is hard. I've always wanted to do that. I look around that room and I know that every single one of those people sitting in there is sitting there with uncertainty and questions and heartache. And I wanted to gather them together like chicks, you know what I mean? Like you just hold them under your wing, and not that I'm anybody special, not that I'm not right in the exact same spot as them, but I can't help but wonder, did they feel compelled to look at somebody else and say, it's going to be all right? Anyway, that's just how I think. That's the kind of person I am. I wanted to talk about some of the things that were hard. So in this journey, besides the journey itself, I would say there are some very hard things that we go through. The first one is seeing friends and family with babies. I felt like everybody and their mother was pregnant when I was trying to go through this round of IVF, and it was just dumbfounding to me. I couldn't get over. I worked in a restaurant. This is great. I worked in a restaurant, you guys, and it was like they sat every family with children in my section. I was like, good Lord in heaven, make it stop. I'd go in the back and just cry and, I wipe my eyes and wash my hands and go back out on the floor. It was really just, it was heart-wrenching. And then, of course, there's people that I love, and I'm so excited that they're having children. And I'm not angry at them for having babies, right? I mean, we're not mad at them, but we're just mad, or I was just mad that I wasn't, And then there's that horrible shame, like what an awful person, as if we don't already feel bad enough and we're not, just swimming in hormones already. Then the shame comes on, like, what a terrible person you are. And it's like, I just want babies. My feeling like my body doesn't work, that feeling that we would wrestle with as a woman. You see these women just floating on clouds, breastfeeding, like, oh, I was made to be a mother, and you're over here in the struggle of your life. And the eye rolling from other people when they don't get it. They don't get, and that's okay, but it doesn't mean it feels good. Especially once and if you become pregnant, I mean, you're like walking on eggshells because it's cost us so much, not just financially, but emotionally, time. I mean, people don't go through what we go through to get pregnant. And so if we won't lift a certain thing, or we won't do a certain thing, or we're extra cautious about something, or we go to acupuncture, we wear socks on our feet to keep our uterus warm. I mean, there's like 1,000 rules that we go through with IVF. And who knows if any of them work, but if it makes me feel better, I'm going to do it. If it helps me relax, yeah. And so your eye roll is not appreciated. Like, I don't care if you ate 16 pounds of something that I'm not supposed to eat. Like, I don't care. I don't care if you lifted your 40-pound kid 55 times a day. Good for you. I'm not going to do it because you have no idea what it's cost me to get pregnant. So my bad, and not everybody sees it the same way I do. There are women who go through fertility treatments that aren't as afraid as I have been, but there are plenty of us that are. So the shame for feeling like I was overreacting when I wasn't, I don't have that anymore. Yeah, nobody's going to tell me that I'm being ridiculous, because no, I'm not. And neither are you. People not understanding, it's none of their business. Procedures, the unexplained fertility, that was really hard. Trusting your body. So after 8 weeks, they're like, okay, stop your hormones. Do you hear crickets? Because I was like, I'm sorry, what? You just spent months and years telling me my body doesn't work right, and now all of a sudden you're like, just stop. And you're like, but shouldn't I wean off of them? They're like, no, the placenta will take care of everything. You're like, you are out of your mind. You think I'm just going to trust my body to work. And so you stop taking the injections, and you're like this the whole time. I mean, talk about on your knees in prayer, people. Please don't let me have a miscarriage. Please don't let something happen to the baby. I mean, like I said, we're freaks. So, stuff I didn't do so well. Obviously, you can tell I'm an excitable person, so relaxing. I think it's hilarious that they inject us, so we inject ourselves full of all these hormones, and then they're like, okay, sweetie, you go ahead and relax. You take it easy. You're like, no, you relax. Get out of my face. I didn't relinquish control well. That was a terrible process for me, and it continues to be a terrible process for me. And I feel like something, if I looking back, if there was one thing that I would do differently that I think would have the most positive impact on not necessarily becoming pregnant, but on my abilities and my my journey through the process that would have helped with that, would have been therapy. There's no shame in talking to somebody, and even if you're not freaking out over an IVF cycle, or you handle things better than I do, better coping skills, praise God. But all of your life is still happening, and then you add all the IVF, the appointments, the stress between you and your husband, or you and your wife, and you and whatever, you add that on top of it, and it's a lot. And there's no shame in asking for help. So therapy, folks, check it out. And I know that a lot of fertility clinics will provide you with assistive therapies, will at least give you references for places to go and people to talk to. So, I mean, it's like a full meal deal. So just talk to your people and see what they can do. Let's see, some of the good things. Some of the good things. I noticed that God was always there. And it's like, yeah, no, duh, or I don't believe in that guy. I get you. But if you're looking around and you want to know in the midst of hardship where God is, or where the goodness in the universe is, I'm going to say Jesus because he's my guy. Look for the help. Look for the people that are helping you. Be thankful for the therapy. Be thankful for the insurance. If you don't have insurance, be thankful that somehow y'all have figured out a way. Somebody's helped you, somebody scraped it together, or you have a job, or you're willing to pay this thing off for the next 10 years because it's worth it to you, and that takes courage. So that's something that I felt was obvious to me, that even when I'm sobbing sitting at the top of the stairs, I know that in that moment, even though it's not what I want, another failed round wasn't what I wanted, but that he would just scoot in next to me and sit with me and be with me, and that I was never alone. I felt so much stronger, especially after my injections. I felt like I'm capable, and nobody's ever going to be able to tell me that I'm not. Ever again. Ever again. Feeling like my past had been redeemed. That was something that was huge for me, especially when I did end up becoming pregnant, when we became pregnant, because I hadn't ruined everything. I didn't get sober for nothing. And I know that sounds ridiculous because obviously I didn't get sober for nothing, but one of the things that the Lord put out in front of me was a husband and a child. And I realized that might not have been my story, and it might not be yours. But he redeemed my past in that moment. And he can do the same for you, whatever that looks like. So many promises, you guys, so many promises. And then just realizing the growth that happened due to the process, and that it was so horribly overwhelming the first time. There's no way I could have sat here with you guys and talked about it like this and not just not been coherent and like cohesive. The thoughts wouldn't have been as slightly cohesive as they are now. They wouldn't have been this much. Trust me. So I didn't know I could handle it, but I did. And so looking back, I'm like, oh, I did that. Oh my goodness, I've been through something so hard, not just sobriety, not just, learning how to be a functioning human being again, but now I'm past that and I get to be a mom. And trust me, that brings its own level of difficulties, y'all. Don't even get me started. But I did it. So if there's one thing that I've learned as well, that besides my strength and ability to endure, it is definitely that we're all on our own journey. And I just can't stress that enough. Whatever you decide to do, wherever you are in this journey, I just want you to know that I'm here. And I'm not just that lady that had fertility problems and now she's got a baby so you don't have to listen. It's that I realize that I don't have control over why we did get pregnant. I don't know how come. And I know that just as easily we could have ended up not pregnant. We are no better than anybody else. We are shoulder to shoulder in this journey, you guys. And that brings me to something else I'd like to share with you. You guys mind? I'm going to go ahead. What's that? I know I can't hear you. All right, so I'm really excited. I'm going to write something down, and I'm going to show you guys what it means. And it's really, really exciting. So if you hop on any of the forums like Baby Center and Mumsnet and just, there's 1,000 of them, right? You're going to see Holy Acronym Town. There's so many acronyms. 2WW, 2-week wait. FET means a frozen embryo transfer. So I'm going to write this down. So hang on, I'm getting there. Now, I'm using my phone and it's flipped around, so I'm hoping that this isn't reversed. But if it is, you should get it anyway. So what this means right here, this is like, what in the what? So 6 days past. Remember I said sometimes they'll transfer the embryos at 3 days and sometimes they'll do it at 5 days? So 6 days past a 5-day frozen embryo transfer. That's me. Right now. Were you guys wondering why I had these hormones on hand? Guess who has circles on her backside? Right here. So I am, I'm in this with you guys literally right now. So if you're going through a cycle and you don't know if you're pregnant, neither do I. I am 6 days past a 5-day frozen embryo transfer. I am here, but just a couple weeks ago, we found out that we were not pregnant from the last cycle that we did. So we just, for lack of a better phrase, failed a cycle. A cycle didn't take, and so we lost 2 embryos, which is scary. I'm thankful that we had them, but so yeah, I got terrible news, and I kind of knew because I'd started bleeding, and we lost 2 embryos, and for me, that's life. Those are babies. Those are babies, and that's a terrible feeling. So we immediately jumped right back in, and this last round we've actually had to do out of pocket. Because as soon as we jumped back in, we got denied from our insurance company. We've apparently reached our lifetime limit. I'm thankful that we had one, but we were blessed immensely by family members, and I am now 6 days past a 5-day frozen embryo transfer, and I don't know. Any symptoms I could be feeling right now, which I do feel some stuff, but any symptoms I'm feeling right now are also symptoms that you get from the hormones themselves. So there's no way to know right now. And I think that it's perfect to share right now because I don't know. And it is a little scary, and I know that it's a risk sharing that with you, and I know that it's extremely public, and I get that. But that's the point. I wanted to share before I knew because I wanted to be able to build a sense of community, to know that if we succeed, if this round takes, that we can celebrate together. Knowing that there have been a lot of struggles, and if it fails, then you guys will know, and then I'll have community outside of my awesome group of friends that I've had. I love you guys. But a broader sense of community. So if it doesn't work, then I'm not alone, which is my desire for you guys. And so I'm really excited. I don't know what's going to happen. If we don't end up becoming pregnant, if we aren't pregnant, this round we have one embryo left, one, and then we're done. So prayers, fingers, eyeballs, toes, everything, cross it all. We're really excited. It was really hard to fail that last round, but I feel okay. I feel like, okay, if not, then I'll go through whatever grieving I'll need to go through. And I have a counselor now. I see a therapist every 2 weeks. And I just want to be honest about that because there's no shame in that, y'all. Talk to some people. If you find a therapist and it's not working for you, they're trained for that too. Say, I don't think we're a good fit, and go find somebody else. Get somebody to talk to. So I think that's it, you guys. I'm really excited. I'm going to keep you posted. Let me know if you have any questions. You guys type them in. If I didn't explain something well, or if I said something that's upset you, give me a chance to explain or to apologize, because my heart is to just love on you and to just be honest about our journey. And I hope that you're blessed. And if you know somebody who's going through this or is contemplating it, please share this with them, and share it on any of the social media. Not for me, guys. I'm going to do this whether this gets shared 1 time or 600 times, okay? Because it's burning inside of me, and I'm going to be obedient to what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing, because this is who I am. So this isn't about me becoming popular through sharing this video. It's about everybody else. And if I can just help one person feel more comfortable or feel not alone, then I'm so thankful for that. It was worth the 3 different tries of this video that I've done. Yes, it's taken me 3 times. Yay! Don't forget that you can go to my Instagram at Season Cromwell, Facebook as well. It's the same name, Season Cromwell, and they're both a public profile, so you can just jump right on there. I'm available for questions or prayer. If you want to do it private or public, just let me know. And don't forget to like and share, and I'm going to keep you guys posted. I've got just over a week to see if we are pregnant for our beta test, and then the whole journey begins again. So hugs and kisses and lots of baby dust. Okay.